Hey, Stuart.
Hi, Yingxia.
Nice meeting you.
Nice to meet you. I got you a coffee.
Oh, thank you for your coffee.
Stuart Wiggin is a British vlogger who's been sharing his 17 years of experience in China with the world. He has more than 3 million followers across platforms like YouTube, Bilibili, Douyin, and more. What's his life like in China? How does he feel about Chinese culture? In this episode of People's Daily Podcast China Mosaic, he shares his journey and insights with us.
Alright, let's start with your journey. What brought you to China and how did you get into media? What inspired you to be a vlogger?
So I came to China back in 2007, towards the end of 2007, just before the Beijing Olympics. Me and a few of my friends from university decided that after we graduated, we wanted to have an adventure and we wanted to go over the other side of the world to somewhere we've never been to. So we chose China. We flew to China and we ended up living in the countryside in Beijing, in a very, very small village in Shunyi district. This was a long time ago, so it wasn't very built up at all. And we taught English for that first year.
Teaching English to who?
To Chinese university students. It was a private Chinese university.
Oh, okay.
After a year of teaching, we all went our separate ways. Some people went back to the UK and some of us stayed in China. I wanted to learn Chinese because I'd spent a year here and I really hadn't learned any Putonghua, Mandarin Chinese. So I enrolled at ROI, International Studies University, and I studied Chinese for a year. After that, I kind of ran out of money. I had to find a job. So I found a job in a media company as a script editor for radio shows. I did that for a while and then slowly started to do other media. I was a sports reporter for a while and then I started doing video and it was like this, interview kind of situations in studios, and then I slowly transitioned to making vlogs outside the studio. So I was making vlogs in around 2012, 2013 maybe. That was before vlogging became like a very big popular phenomenon. I'm probably the longest filming vlogger in China for a while. And yeah, that's how I got into being a vlogger, yeah.
Your video content is very diverse, everything from travel and food to trying out different professions and even bring your parents along for a ride. So how do you come up with the themes of the content?
So in terms of bringing my parents along for the ride, I don't plan. Most of the work there is in the editing, like trying to put it all together and making a nice story. And then in terms of my personal videos, I have a small team, myself, producer and cameraman. And we try and plan ahead as much as possible. And we think, what events are going on in China or what seems to be interesting at the moment? And can we go and do that? For example, like the kite festival in Weifang. I'd seen pictures of that years and years ago. And then we thought, oh, one year we have to go and do that. So we just started planning maybe 3-4 months in advance to try and make sure that we can definitely go to the Weifang Kite Festival. So we just try and think of things that we find interesting, then go and film them, if possible.
Which content is the most popular among your followers?
Yeah, what do you think?
I love your parents' trip the most.
Yeah, but there is a difference in terms of what content is popular here in China and what content is popular amongst international viewers. So like you said, you're a fan of my parents' vlogs. They're very popular here. And I think that's part of a whole trend of first-time visitors coming to China. Also, my parents, especially my dad, he's quite funny, so that helps as well. And then international viewers, it's more varied. People like to see things that maybe their countries lack, I think. Like high-speed rail videos are always really popular on YouTube, or things like self-driving vehicles, or new venues that China builds for big events like the Asian Games or the Winter Olympics. I've been lucky enough to go to those venues or like the Olympic villages before the games have taken place and go around and have a look. People like to see that. It's like behind the curtain, like having a look inside things that maybe they wouldn't normally see.
Which is your personal favorite?
So of course I like spending time with my parents. You know, that doesn't feel like work. You know, that's just family time. But I enjoy anything related to travel. I know I'm very, very fortunate. I'm very lucky that I've been to see so many places. Because China's so varied and vast, and like a few weeks ago I was in the desert, and then next week I'm going to be in a forest.
I think everyone loves travel. With the 144-hour visa-free transit policy, more and more foreign travelers have been traveling in China, making the China travel a global trend.
Yeah.
What do you think of that?
I think it's great. My parents, when they last came to China, they went the 144-hour route. I think it opens up a lot of possibilities for people to come to China, and maybe they hadn't considered it before. I can only speak from experience here. Applying for a visa to come travel to any country, but also to China as well, obviously, it sometimes puts people off. Like, it's quite difficult. And in the UK, if you don't live near a Chinese embassy, there are only 3 in the UK. So if you don't live near one, it's quite difficult to apply, like especially for older travellers who would need to travel to different cities just to apply. Anything that allows people a chance to see what China's like for themselves, I think, is a great thing.
What can we do to attract more foreign tourists? If you had a chance to give some advice to the Chinese government, etc., what would you recommend?
I have one strange suggestion that maybe no one's thought of before. Like, in the UK, a lot of people still watch TV instead of just online. So if you watch TV, there's a lot of adverts on TV, and we will often see an advert of beautiful countries, scenery, and then it'll just say visit, and then the place, right? Visit Greece, visit Dubai. It's like an advert for the country, whereas I've never seen visit China or visit and then the name of a province. So that's just like a very simple thing that I think other countries do in those markets where there's a lot of people who have disposable income and like to travel. The visit Dubai adverts and visit Qatar adverts are very popular on UK TV. So I think maybe China could try something like that. If you can't skip TV, well, I mean, you can, but you know, they probably won't. And it's just a short, simple way, but it's very traditional. Yeah.
Very practical advice. Thank you.
It's okay.
How many places have you been to in China?
Oh, so many. I haven't kept count. I could just tell you the places I haven't been. I've never been to Hunan. I think
Only Hunan?
Hunan's the only province I haven't been to.
Wow.
Obviously, there's lots of cities I've never been to. Like, I've been to Yunnan. You know, Yunnan's huge. I haven't been all around Yunnan.
Since China is too big.
It's so big. It's the perfect global travel destination for foreign tourists because it has everything. It's got like snow-peaked mountains, ski resorts, it's got the desert, it's got forests, it's got like beaches, it's got everything. And I think a lot of foreign tourists aren't aware of that. Obviously, they're becoming more aware. But if you ask someone about China, they'll probably say Beijing, Shanghai.
The big cities just.
Yeah.
But actually, China is more than that.
Oh, it's so much more. Chongqing has only recently become popular because there's so many videos. You'll go on X or you'll go on YouTube and you'll see like these videos of drone shots through the city of it looking amazing. But still, if you ask the average person about China, they still probably wouldn't say Chongqing. They'd still say Beijing, Great Wall, Shanghai. Maybe that's something that people in charge of tourism here can focus on, like just promoting these incredible cities rather than, you know, the established cities, because people are going to come to Beijing and Shanghai anyway.
You've been to many places in China, probably more than most Chinese. So do you have any recommendations for foreign tourists?
So a place that maybe foreign tourists would never consider is like Fujian province. Like, I love the city of Xiamen. It's got such a nice, relaxed kind of feel. The food's excellent. You could just take a train when you're in Fujian. You can go directly to Pingtan County, which is like an island county. And in Pingtan, you can see the phenomenon of bioluminescence. That's the blue tears, 蓝眼泪. It's very windy, so you have to pay attention to what time of year you go. And then you can see something that you might not see anywhere else in the world.
We just mentioned your parents. The videos of your parents' trips in China blew up. Where did they go and what impressed them most in China? Okay,
so the first time they came was in 2010. And they went to Beijing and Shanghai. And then the second time I took them to Chongqing, Chengdu, and we went around more places in Beijing. The last time they came, we went to Hong Kong and Macau, Hangzhou, and Qiandaohu, which is in Hangzhou, but it's in the county, and then Shanghai again, because my mum really liked Shanghai. They were impressed all the time. The first time they came, they took the high-speed train. And the second time they took a faster high-speed train. And then the third time it was a business class high-speed train.
Yeah, I saw the video of them taking business class on a train from Hangzhou to Shanghai, right?
Yeah, they love train travel in China. I think also because train travel in Britain at the moment isn't the best. It's not in a great situation. They kept saying how China has everything thought out. Obviously, bike sharing here is just a huge thing. Like they would see people putting the bikes back on the truck and moving them to other places. Whereas in Britain, the bike sharing doesn't really work as well as here in China. And then I remember in Shanghai, we were walking past someone who's putting a folding bike into a car. And my mum said, "Oh, that bike's good." And I said, "Well, what's happening is something else. That's daijia." For people listening or watching and they don't know, daijia is when you call someone using an app to drive you home, usually because you'd be drinking alcohol or you just don't want to drive. And then they'll take you home and then they'll get the bike out the car and that person will drive to the next people who need a driver. And they thought that was amazing because we don't have that in Britain. And it's just all thought out, like every aspect of service or making people's lives better.
So what do they think of your settling in China?
They are very supportive of it. They always say, if I'm happy, they're happy. They're not worried at all because they've seen what China's like. They've seen what Beijing is like. Maybe before they came, they were a little worried about me living in a foreign country. But after coming, they have no worries at all. Yeah, I'm sure they miss me. I hope they miss me. I miss them, but yeah, they're very supportive.
Do you have any siblings?
I do have an elder sister. Yeah.
So your sister lives in Britain with your parents?
They don't live together. They live in the same city.
At least your parents have one child nearby.
True.
What do you miss most about home?
Family and friends. That's what I miss most.
How often did you go back home?
Once or twice. Each time maybe 1 week or 2 weeks.
Similar to me. Because
right.
I live in Beijing and my parents live in Zhejiang. Actually, I just go back home during the Spring Festival, 1 or 2 weeks.
Yeah, that's something that foreigners don't really realise as well. In China, because it's so vast, unless you live in the same city as your parents, probably won't see them that often. Generally, it's just around Spring Festival, isn't it?
Yeah. I noticed in some of your videos you serve food to your parents. And in one of your videos, I think you mentioned feeling guilty about not spending enough time with your parents. I found that actually kind of surprising because I thought in Western culture, filial piety isn't as emphasized as it is in China.
Yeah.
So has Chinese culture influenced your relationship with your parents?
Putting food on other people's plates obviously is a result of me being influenced by Chinese culture. I wouldn't do it in the UK. People would think I was strange if I did it in the UK. But that's just because of food. The food culture is different, right? But I do think there's like a misconception about Chinese people thinking that foreigners or people from my country don't care about our parents. I think we have it. We don't use the term filial piety. 孝顺is a very popular term, or it's a very common term in China. We don't have a common term in Britain. We don't talk about it, but it just manifests in different ways, right? In Britain, taking your parents abroad on holiday is a very common thing. A lot of my friends take their parents and whole families like to Spain or to Europe, like on little family holidays. So that's one example. Another example of what I would class as filial piety would be fathers and sons going to football together. So when the son is younger, the father will take the son to watch their football team, and when the son grows up, the son will take the father. And that's a very common thing in the UK. We don't call it filial piety, it just exists. I remember in one of the videos with my parents, I was walking with my dad and I held his arm, and lots of people in the comments section were surprised that I would hold him. And that's not because I've been in China. I would do that anyway in the UK, like just worried about him falling over.
So there is some misunderstanding. I learned something new. Are there any other aspects of British culture that you think most Chinese might not know or have stereotypes about?
Of course, there will be stereotypes. I mean, lots of people think Britain has no tasty food. It does have some tasty food.
Oh, really?
Yeah, really. Yeah, remember, we're an island. Britain's an island, so we have lots of seafood, right? So if you go to Britain, you went to the south coast, you could taste some amazing seafood. And when people think about British food, they never think about seafood, which is strange because we're just a small island in the sea. There must be many stereotypes that people have, but also there are many stereotypes that British people have about China that are wrong.
So what kinds of stereotypes do British people have towards Chinese?
I mean, I can't speak for all British people. Before I came, I assumed that everyone still rode a bicycle.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean, how stupid is that?
You came in 2007.
Yeah.
Oh, that's before the Beijing Olympics. I think at that time, many Westerners do not have...
We knew even less about China.
Yeah.
I had no idea about what temperature it would be. Like, I didn't know that Beijing has extremely cold winters and then extremely hot summers. The word stereotype might not be the right word. We just have a very small knowledge about such a huge country. Obviously, some people know a lot about China, but the vast majority, maybe they have no idea about about the situation in China.
So the next question is about the recent change in your life. Congrats on getting married.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Since your wife is Chinese, so you're a Chinese son-in-law now. Any interesting family experiences to share?
If I were to go to my mother-in-law's house every day and eat, I would be extremely overweight, because I've discovered that Chinese parents-in-laws love to give their son-in-law, maybe daughter-in-law, food. Whereas in the UK, if you went to the UK, the British mother-in-law would say, if you don't want to eat it, don't eat it. Whereas in China, even my mother-in-law knows I'm full, they'll give me more food.
So did you get weight after marriage?
Not yet, but soon. Yeah, I'm sure it'll happen.
I think many Chinese parents do such things to their children. Like my mom, she complained that I'm too fat and asked me to lose weight, but every time when we are having meals, she can't help herself piling food on my plates.
Food is love, isn't it?
Maybe it's a Chinese style love.
I think it just shows that the Chinese parents, or parents-in-laws in my case, they just care.
Do you love Chinese food?
Absolutely, yeah. That's why I'm so much heavier now than before. I've put a lot of weight on since I came to China. Like when I first came to China, 2007, I was 63 kilograms.
Oh.
And now I'm about 83 kilograms. So yeah, that's all Chinese food's fault.
So what's your go-to Chinese dish?
My go-to dish, I've got so many, but I really do like Hong Shao Rou, or Dongpo Rou, Guo Kui, like Rou Jia Mo. Yeah, there's loads. Kao Ya, Peking duck. I love Chongqing hot pot. I love any kind of hot pot, really.
What regional cuisine do you love the best? Sichuan, Hunan, Cantonese, or
Yeah, I like
something else?
Xibei. Xibei is very nice.
Xibei?
Yeah.
Surprising answer.
Yeah. To be honest, I like almost every region. I really like sweet things in Cantonese food. I'm British, so we love desserts. Right?
Oh.
So, and then there's lots of really good desserts in Cantonese cuisine. And then I love Trancai, love Sichuan food because it's spicy. When I first came to China, I couldn't really handle spicy, but then I've developed my palate, my tongue. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've killed a lot of taste buds in my tongue eating spicy food.
Is there any Chinese food or dish that you absolutely cannot bring yourself to eat?
Yeah, 猪耳根.
Oh, I cannot eat that too.
Yeah, so
either.
The translation is what? I can't remember the Latin, but it's referred to as fish mint.
Do you like coriander?
Yeah, I like coriander.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It smells strange.
Does it? It smells lovely. I think in the UK, because we have a lot of Indian people and a lot of Bengali people, British cuisine has a lot of Indian food. Like, it's such a common ingredient in Indian food that a lot of British people just are used to it quite early. But in China, yeah, lots of people don't like coriander. It's a very strange thing.
What do you think has been the biggest change in China during the 17 years you've been here?
What I have noticed, which would sound a bit strange compared to 2007, 2008 when I first came, young people today in China seem to be far more confident. I met quite a few young people because I was at a university, and they seemed to be quite shy and reserved. Whereas today, Chinese young people are super confident, really self-assured, and they're very culturally confident. They're confident about being Chinese. I think that's a phenomenon that is the result of all those other changes. Like there's all this success in all these other areas of society, and people are more and more proud of their country. I wish I was as brave and as confident, as funny when I was 20 years old. Yeah.
Do you have a specific story in your mind? Like, has anyone, including your Chinese friends, influenced your perspective on the changes in China's younger generation?
I went to Sichuan Liangshan, and I was on the train. It was a slow train, and it's through the countryside, and it was a train that kids have to take to get to school.
Mm-hmm.
And these kids were coming up and talking to me, which I wouldn't do when I was their age. They're very, very young, like 12, 13, and they were really confident. They just wanted to come up and talk to me. They want to know about me, but also they want to share with me what's going on in their life. It's just one of the examples that I can think of.
You started off speaking English with Chinese subtitles in your videos, and now you can speak Chinese fluently. When you're introducing China's story to the world, you've also become a China hand. What do you find most fascinating about Chinese culture?
So first of all, I wouldn't say I'm fluent in Chinese, and also secondly, I wouldn't say I'm a China hand. I am someone that lives in China who is constantly learning about China. And one of the things, or several of the things that I love about China, ancient culture here in China, it's still so present in 2024, and it will be present in another 50 years. And that's because when you grew up, you were taught about ancient Chinese culture. Like you learned how to recite ancient poetry. You could recite ancient poems now, right? Yeah, you could, which I think is amazing. In Britain, we don't have that. We don't have that link to traditional British culture. Like people can't recite a Shakespeare sonnet, even a short one. We can't. We don't learn from a young age. We only learn maybe when we're like 14, 15. Chinese children learn ancient poetry from a very young age, which I think is incredible. Maybe you don't think too much about the ancient poetry, but you know it, and then when you grow up, you can start to consider it more. I really like that aspect of society, how young people are taught to value ancient culture from a young age.
I mean, what do British learn at a young age at the English class?
We do not learn classic poetry. Obviously, it's easier to learn an ancient Chinese poem because it's very, very short, whereas maybe classic poetry in Britain is very long. So it's not very conducive towards teaching young children, but we don't have that emphasis on traditional culture from an early age, whereas China does, which I think is good.
Okay, let's back to the topic of your career.
Right.
I heard that you edit almost all of your vlogs by yourself. As someone who also works in media, I can appreciate the amount of effort that goes into your high-quality videos.
Thank you.
So, what does the work as a vlogger mean to you?
It's a record of my time. It's also a record of other people's time. So I can look back and see what I've done, but I can also look back and see what a certain place was like at that time. It's also a record of China as well, and it's something that people can go and watch and be entertained by, but also see how things have changed over the years, because I've been doing it for quite a few years. It's like a snapshot of China. Could
you please share one little known fact that you think most Chinese might not know, if you could?
Yeah, right, okay. Because I make travel videos, my little known facts are going to be related to travel. I'll give you one related to food. It's all subjective. If you go to Inner Mongolia, you will eat lamb or mutton. Yeah. It's just like a staple dish. If you want to find the most tender lamb in the whole of Inner Mongolia, my personal opinion is you go to the Owenki Autonomous Banner in Ulaanbaatar, because there they cook it in a different way to other places in Inner Mongolia. I've been to Inner Mongolia quite a few times, different places within Inner Mongolia, and I was surprised sometimes that the lamb there is quite tough. It tastes good, but it's not what I expected until I went to the Owenki Autonomous Banner, and that's where they have the best lamb. So there's one thing that maybe some Chinese people don't know about.
Oh, I don't know about it.
So you can go there next time for some incredible lamb. What else? I'll give you one related to culture. So for anyone who has recently been playing Black Myth Wukong, the earliest ever picture or depiction of Sun Wukong is in a small grotto near Dunhuang, and it's called the Yuling Grottos. It's in the middle of the desert in Gansu province, and it was created like, I think 300, 400 years before Journey to the West was written. They're in caves next to each other, and it's only very small, but it's the first ever picture of the Monkey King. And if you like, a lot of travellers now want to find places that no one goes to, right? And China has lots of these examples, I think, and one of them that I can think of that I can recommend is in Yunnan, Nujiang. There's a place called Zhizuluo. It's a town that was abandoned in the 80s, not for any bad reason. It was just people moved away to go work in bigger cities. Maybe like a few people that still live there, but generally the whole town is empty since the 80s, and it hasn't changed, and there are beautiful murals up from the 80s painted on the walls, and you can go there and walk around, and it's like a place where it's kind of secret. It's beautiful.
Interesting. I'll try visit it next time.
Yeah.
Out of all your filming experiences, which one stands out for you the most?
So I've got lots of really good memories about filming, and usually they're kind of funny. I think it was Fujian province, and I did Ganhai, where you search for the seafood on the floor, and I got stuck in the mud. It doesn't sound very good, but if you go back and watch the video, it's really funny, and I just get stuck every single step. I went to Ulan Chabu in Inner Mongolia to train with the firefighters there. It was really difficult, and it really made me realise what an amazing job that firefighters do. I did the obstacle course, and I couldn't even get over the first obstacle. And then there was a 10-story building that you have to run up with whilst carrying the hoses. I carried one, and it took me 6 or 7 minutes. The firefighter teacher, he ran up within 2 minutes, and he had 3 hoses and one in his mouth. So it was experiences like that. Not only did I go somewhere and see how beautiful Wuhan travel is, but I also got to experience someone else's life for a day and realise that I can't do what many of these people do.
Because you have tried out so many different professions in China. If you don't work in the media, if you change your profession, which one would you pick?
A tour guide, yeah. Or I could be a Didi driver, right?
Oh, really? Why? Why do you want to be a Didi driver?
I quite like driving in China. I'd like to see more of China. That would be a way to see more of China whilst...
while you can also
earn money,
money. Yeah. So if you become a Didi driver, will you keep talk with your passengers?
Yeah, that would be my Chinese corner, right? When you like Chinese students have English corner, I would have Chinese corner. So it's like
and for free.
For free as well. Yeah, I get paid for it.
Last question. As someone who's been bridging the gap between cultures, what do you think we can do to improve mutual understanding between Chinese and British people?
If more young British students can visit China and see what it's like, and then if more young Chinese students can visit Britain and see what it's like, that can only be good for the future. Like when British young people come to China, their opinions of China really do change. And I assume that's the same when people go to Britain as well. So I think it can be really useful, and just to try and get people to just forget their stereotypes. It's so important, especially for China, because there's so much negative news in my country about China. It's usually agenda driven. So if you let people come here and see for themselves, they'll change their opinion.
Okay, today's chat was a lot of fun. I learned a lot from your incredible journey and thoughtful insights about Chinese culture. Thank you for coming to our show, Stuart.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm glad to hear that you've learned something. I'm glad that I've been of help to you.
And thank you to our audience. You can find Stuart on his channel, The China Traveler on YouTube, or 司徒建国 Stu, 司徒建国秀 on Bilibili, as well as other social platforms. Until next time, this is China Mosaic. I'm your host, Yingqi.